So I really appreciate all the comments of our wonderful panelists, and on to the questions.
So the house is open to questions and answers, Q&A. So if you have any queries, you can
I
please
see
type in the
some in
chat
the
box.
chat window here.
So I have a question for Shrikant. Like, can I ask that before the students and others, the audience ask?
Sure, sir, sure.
So, Shrikant, like, so there is this, this liquidity, this like phenomenal liquidity that we see, like, happening from the US and like, like Europe, right? And that's finding its way into the Indian public markets and the emerging markets chasing higher returns. How do you expect like the funding for early stage ventures to be? Like, what is the experience from 2008? How do you think that?
Yeah. So there is clearly a lot of money, but here's the challenge when it comes to early stage investing in India. If you're trying to raise a seed raise, which is before your Series A, the investors in India tend to be a lot more stricter and stringent in their evaluation. They behave like a Series A investor. When you're trying to raise a Series A, they tend to behave like a Series B investor in terms of the criteria they use. So the bar is just set higher for India. I'm part of a global investing network. And when I talk to my counterparts in US, North America or Europe, companies without revenue, if they have a great prototype of a product, get funded for seed in UK, for example. But in India, the investor will say, show me your first set of customers, show me your revenues. It's just that we've set a high bar in India, but that's fine. It just makes the Indian companies here lot more hardy, lot more sturdy. They get used to a higher bar. Their ability to compete when they go out is much higher. So there is a big leap they need to take initially. And therefore, we put pressure on them to say, look, those guys in UK are not under pressure to generate revenues, but you got to generate revenues here. And so the bar is higher, but the money is available.
Any questions from the audience?
So I see a question here from Nikhil to
Yes.
Neil.
Yes.
How do
So
caregivers in healthcare industry, apart from pharma and diagnostics, fare in this period, and what should their strategy be to cope?
Yeah, so hospital industry did suffer initially, both on account of the constraint on the people's movement, as well as the postponement of the elective surgeries, and also because the OPDs were also closed in quite a few places. But they have begun to come back, still not at the normal level, but because these are essential services, so hopefully they will return to normalcy as soon as possible. However, the capex and the expansion is not happening in the hospital. They have been put on hold as of now. But when it comes to the actual caregiving, I don't think there has been a slowdown in that. And it is only that the effort has been directed towards the COVID-related cases in this period as compared to the elective surgeries. If you look at the company's profitability and others, so that part of the profitability which has suffered, which was dependent on the international medical tourism, because that line is shut right now. But apart from that, the other parts of the profitability of the hospital industry has remained intact and has been doing well, has been growing.
So what about
so we have
yes. Just as a quick follow-up to that, what about telemedicine? And perhaps, Shrikant, you would like to say something about that in addition, and Venki, because the medical sector, that too is being changed by technology.
No, that is being absolutely changed. During COVID and the lockdown, it was born out of necessity because doctors could not see patients. But I think increasingly, everyone's realized that it has improved your ability to deliver healthcare to people who did not have access to it. We have a couple of great examples at IIMCIP itself, where people there's a startup called 5C Networks, which was always doing radiology. They moved into teleradiology in a big way, and they moved from teleradiology to doing COVID detection remotely at places where the testing facilities are not available. They could basically take a lung scan and figure out whether there's an early onset of COVID, for example. So people have, but that is here to stay. Telemedicine has been around as a jargon for a long time, but I think this has been the tipping point, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may add to that, Anju, I think telemedicine is one classic case of technology, like, being there, but the regulations were not relaxed because government was sitting on it and lobbies were like, heavily working against it and all that. Just the necessity of the situation just made it happen. So in many ways, and it's a hard thing to say because we've lost so many lives in COVID. But I think, like, it's made life better for people who are staying back, right? Like, it is like a really big hit for sure. But I think it's kind of like, woken up the world in multiple ways. And just hope it stays, that the lobbies don't come back and kind of like, impose those limitations again. I think we've seen a lot of movement.
This is an interesting conversation we can continue to have. How does one monitor quality in telemedicine, which is a complex issue, maybe not more complex than monitoring quality in physical delivery of medicine? But that, I think, was part of the regulatory issue, that you're talking about, that how does one monitor quality? Do you have something quick to say on that, and then we can get on to some other questions?
Yeah. So let me address this question because my son is in first year medicine and
good.
he has been going through this. So initially one thought that the lockdown is going to be for a few weeks or a few months. So they tried to complete the theory part of this through tele-education, but practicals, which are an integral part of the medicine, that couldn't have been done. And now for last 1 month or so, he has begun to go to college. So my answer would be that tele-education in medical probably has got limited impact. The practicals has to be done on site.
If I may jump in on with one comment there, the regulatory framework in India is a mess, and that is what is holding back innovation in health tech, as it is called. Just to give an example, when we set out to make a ventilator, we went and asked the government, is there any regulation we need to keep track of? 5 people at the secretary level in the government were asking each other, and finally everyone learned that there's no regulation governing a ICU ventilator. You can go, make, and take it to a hospital. Life-saving device, no regulation. There is some planned regulation which is in the pipeline, but as of now, no regulation. It's only a check and balance whether the doctor on the other side or the ICU on the other side is sensible enough to reject a product that's been not tested. But in the absence of a regulation, the problem is you make something high quality in India, you can't export it. Because other countries will say, look, you're coming from a non-regulated market, no certification. How do I believe your product is reliable and credible? That
but
is
don't you have, no, can't you get ISO, can't you get some sort of...
So the medical devices are governed either by FDA in the US or CE in Europe. You need to get one of those. And obviously you need to go through that process, and that process is a bit longer. But why do we need to depend only on an overseas regulator? There's an Indian regulatory framework that's required, and that is our Achilles heel, actually.
Ajay, did the government help you out? Regulatory frameworks, did they help you out? Did the government in any fashion? I mean, since we're talking about how regulation or the government has had an impact, positive or otherwise, in this situation, what about parents?
They made some fabulous statements, I can tell you that. But how much of it came down to the SMEs, I don't know. So I'll just give you one example. They got this scheme called Emergency Load Credit Guarantee Scheme. For giving 20% extra over and above your loans, but they said that is applicable to people who had an outstanding loan on 29th February 2020. So for example, I paid up all my loans as of 31st December 2019, and I was not eligible for this. So people who are good are not eligible. People who are bad became even eligible for more funding. So that's a typical example of some of these schemes, and really come down that much to the SMEs as it should have. Very good for presentations, very good for talks, but I think at our level, not that much.
That's an interesting story. The people who are bad got the money, and the people who are good, paid up on time, had no outstanding loans, suffered.
So I'm not saying these were bad schemes, but I think, when it comes to operationalizing some of these schemes, I think a lot more could have been done.
Great. Sorry, I took over, Nikhil. Back to you. We're just having an
Yes,
interesting
ma'am.
conversation about this. Back to you, Nikhil. I'm sure you're keeping track of
Sure.
questions.
So there's this question from Udit Rawat asking, with government's strong push towards AI and ML, and with many IT companies creating their own divisions of AI and ML, how do you see the future of AI and ML in IT and ITES industry?
So I can take that. Um,
Venki, Venki,
yeah.
can I ask? I'm sorry, this is
Sure.
probably a very it is a very uneducated question. What is ML? I think of it as maximum likelihood.
Machine learning.
It is
Machine
machine
learning.
learning.
Something different.
Artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Machine learning. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, and essentially, like, this question is specifically about like machines learning to code. Instead of a programmer, if you give a task, a machine can create the code itself. And like, we're seeing that increasingly happening. For sure, that's a matter of concern. And it's the latest in a series of like technological advancements that are kind of taking out lower order work, right? Like, so we've lost work because of cloud, right? Like, in a lot of like redundant work kind of like got lost when infrastructure got centralized and managed centrally. And AML definitely we're beginning to lose like work. And in our whole low code, no code space, we're like looking at like business users creating their own applications. That's a no code approach. But then the demand for these applications are also shooting up, right? Everything is going digital, right? So like there is need for pro code. There is not going to be enough of a future for people without sufficient skills, or people who don't have the ability to quickly adapt to new skills that are coming up, right? That kind of dumb work is going out. Like that kind of like, those kind of people are going to like really have a problem. But there is going to be more demand. So AML is going to be a big challenge. It's going to be a big change in the terrain of the kind of skills and jobs that are needed. But AML also
I have to ask you something here. Building on that comment that you just made, do you have a message for our IIM Calcutta graduates?
Definitely. I think like if I think you have to be lifelong learners, and particularly like I think like let me split my message to two, right? Like one is the current students, one any of the alumni who are listening in, right? So students, I think like there is this thinking that hey, we are kind of passing out in a year that is bad, right? But let me tell you, 2009 at the height of like global recession, WhatsApp, Uber, Instagram, Pinterest, Slack, Square, all these companies were born at that time. Airbnb scaled at that time, right? So you need to think, you don't have baggage, you need to think beyond placement, you need to think about like all the changes in behavior that COVID is bringing in and all the advantages that you have as a newcomer. You need to think digital, you need to think artificial intelligence. That's going to be big. Right? As far as alumni, I can only like say what I am doing. I've become a learner myself again, right? Just sitting and understanding how machine learning happens, because like I know how programs and software of the past work, but these are programs that you don't write specifically to do a task. They learn by themselves. How does it happen? It's interesting to learn, right? To go back to having a structured program of learning. Last 2 to 3 years, I've been spending a lot of time learning and realigning our business with like the really growth areas, right? And also like other question, like for me, like as an alumnus, is like the purpose in life. Like COVID has meant that inflection point, right? How much is enough? And like what kind of impact can you have if you work with like people like the government of Punjab, right? Like where you can have like millions of people touched like through some of the skills that you have. So those are the things that like I have as a message for myself, which may be relevant for them.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask all of our panelists that question. Do you have a message for our students, for our alum, for the audience that you would particularly like to share, born out of your experience? Thank you, Venki. That was wonderful. Who would like to go?
Maybe the same order. Neil can go first.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so I've got just one message, and because my initial question was with respect to economy, it is also with respect to economy, that our economy is a lot more resilient than what is. We have gone through the biggest ever crisis in our lifetime. We'll come out stronger, and if one tends to exaggerate, but I will try to exaggerate and say that from the factor market perspective, these are as momentous reforms as it was in 1991 for the financial market. And if successfully implemented, this could unleash an additional growth potential of 1 or 2% on over what our trend growth is. So we have got more reasons to be optimistic about our economy than to be pessimistic.
Thank you, Neil.
Well, I have only two messages. One is patience and perseverance. I think that is going to be the theme for the next 6 to 9 months. A lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and I'm sure all of us will pull through very, very well. Second is for all the young IIMCians, Nikhil included, who want to become entrepreneurs. You may have brilliant ideas, but have one thought in mind. Do you have enough capital to last you for 2 years at your current burn rates or expected burn rates? Because one of the major factors which you will face now is a working capital stress. So have a good idea, have everything, but please plan for 2 years of tough life. I've gone through 8 years, but it doesn't mean everybody will go through 8 years. So, but at least 2 years cash you must plan, whether it is through revenues or through funding or something else, for you to be able to put an idea into execution. A lot of people get brilliant ideas, but they don't have adequate cash to back them, and that's their downfall. So that's my message to the students.
So I can say, Ajay, those two words that you use, patience and perseverance, that's not just 6 months, perhaps. Perhaps that's a lifelong kind of attitude to have. Patience and perseverance. One could do well with that. Shrikant?
I'm going to, before I share my thoughts, I'm tempted to add to what Ajay said about having sufficient cash. And this is a word I give to, a message I give to all aspiring entrepreneurs, which says, this is not about the money being needed for the business. It's about the money needed by you and your family, particularly if you're married or have a partner. Ensure that 2 years of personal family expenses are put aside in a separate bank account that you do not have access to, only your spouse or partner has access to, because ensure that the family does not suffer even if your business goes through ups and downs. Otherwise, you'll get beaten up. I did, because I made this mistake many years ago. So that's why I'm sharing from experience. But coming back to the message, I'm with Neil on this. I would say be very confident, be very hopeful about India's prospects, notwithstanding the fact that we have a negative GDP this year, notwithstanding the fact that we lost in cricket this year, be optimistic and confident. And I have a view on this, and I call it Silicon Valley reinvented. One of the things I learned today, and I'm going to pick the words from a friend in Silicon Valley who's worked in every FANG company, by the way, Venki. He says Silicon Valley's advantages, competitive advantages, have disappeared, at least for the moment. What was their competitive advantage? Investors, bright young people, academicians, mentors, all getting together in a cafe or a bar. They're no longer getting together. Today doesn't matter whether you're in the small 120 square kilometer area or whether you're in Calcutta or whether you're anywhere else. Make full use of the possibilities of collaborating with a mentor who could be in US, doesn't matter. It's technology makes it possible. And we are doing this in this IIMC initiative where mentors from Singapore are mentoring our startups in Calcutta. Once in a lifetime opportunity to circumvent Silicon Valley's advantage, to reinvent Silicon Valley in India. We have a very, very, this window of opportunity may not come back again. We should grab it. So be hopeful, be confident.
And I think, Shrikant, I want to put piggyback on that comment. This is an opportunity that is here to stay. This idea of long distance mentoring, or the faculty and academics collaborating with scholars around the world, intercontinental collaborations around the world, they've become so much easier. And it's just COVID that has helped us realize the possibilities inherent in this. I mean, look at this conversation. Would we have thought about having this kind of conversation pre-COVID? Probably not. We would have asked you all to haul yourselves into Calcutta. It would have taken forever to get the logistics straightened out. And now we have these wonderful opportunities to get together and chat. Look forward to more of them. So I think that, I wanted to ask that question to make sure that everybody could say that we do have some extra time to go back to questions or just conversations with each other.
So, Venki, I think your message is still to come.
And Venki was the first message, but he can give it again.
Yeah.
Another question.
Mine was the first. So, for students, I would say look at AI. I mean, AI is the big thing. So, and for alumni, I mean, I'm choosing to be a learner again, and I would love to see the institute take more activities, I think to get alumni to be learners again.
So good. So I think Venki, help us with that. Help us. Every time somebody say, I'd love to see the institutes do something. Please rest assured. I'm going to say, do it. Come by. We will help you. We will make it happen. But you work with us to make it happen.
I'll take you up on it, Anju. I'll do that.
Yes. Yeah. This is the last time Shrikant said that, we should collaborate to have this wonderful IIM mentorship of the incubator companies and see where it's taken off. It's just so marvelous.
I think it might be worthwhile just sharing that with everyone, actually.
Why
Here's
don't you
what
do
we
that?
are doing. What we realized was that this potential for cross-border collaboration is immense. So when the new batch of MBAs came in this year, we said, let's announce a new program and be very selective about it. We picked out 5 of our most promising startups in the innovation park, which with right kind of mentoring can really move to the next orbit. So we created 5 task forces, 1 per startup. Each task force has 2 experienced domain mentors, 2 current MBA students, 1 faculty member, and 1 person from the innovation park staff. And the mentors are from Singapore, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta. Coming together every Saturday. There's a routine of every Saturday a session. And we've set a goal that from October to March, we've set a North Star goal for March. Each of these businesses must become fundable by moving to the next level of orbit. And I'm happy to say, I know Aditi is here. Aditi Bhutoria is one of the faculty members mentoring it, as is Balram. They're all exceedingly happy about the progress we're making. We picked these 10 MBA students, 2 per group, through a selection process. 45 MBA students applied. We interviewed them and picked 10. Hopefully, this will become scaled up next year. And one day, who knows, this could be a credit course for students, actually. But
Hope so.
Alumni, faculty, students, all coming together.
It's exactly what so Venki, look at that model. This is the kind of thing that we're thinking about, that we make it happen in all kinds of different avenues, including AI. Let's see if we can get some project work together that works with this. Is any faculty members, Balram, Aditi, how is this program working for you? And Nikhil, you're one of the students here. Are you?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to say something about that? How does that work?
I am completely in awe of the program. When it started off, I was just very optimistic that we are doing something in preparing the startups for a post-COVID world. And there's a best of both worlds. There's practitioners and there's faculty coming together. And then Shrikant and the team, of course, led by Professor Seth, has brought together this framework which we are working with. So I think everybody has the same language now to mentor, support the startups as they wish. And at least my team is seeing a lot of growth and progress, and we are hoping for the best. So we're really rooting for the team now. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. That's great to hear, Aditi.
So that's a nice speech for it. Balram, you here?
Yeah, I'm very much there. Similar views.
Ditto, in other words. Ditto. All right. Nikhil, what about you as a student? How is this working for you?
I have informed you at the beginning of the session itself that a couple of students have personally messaged me admiring the intention behind the session and the kind of progression of the session, that they are getting to learn a lot. So what I got into my mind right now is, so ESL is conducting a Pan-India summit this January. So it's going to be a very big fest, entrepreneurial fest. So if this success continues until then, why don't we open it up to the audience, sharing the success stories of PCV initiative as part of that fest, just asking a request on behalf of ESL, would that be possible?
I'm sure it would be
Great
possible.
idea.
Come on,
Great
Shrikant, what do you
idea.
think?
Absolutely,
It'll be
great
so great.
idea.
I think that Nikhil is trying to find a substitute to writing a.
Yeah, press release. Yeah.
That's a great platform to promote as well. So we will give you audience, we'll give you everything. Just share your story.
Just for the benefit of everyone, this program is called PCVE, the Post-COVID Venture Experience. That's what the program is banded as, because we just believe that the post-COVID world of business will be different. And that's the advantage we want to give our students by being the first to be experiencing that and take it out to the world when they go, actually.
Yes, well, it's a marvelous endeavor. I know I've been hearing from some of your other mentors how much fun they're having in the program, and from the mentees how much they are benefiting. I hadn't talked to any of the students yet. I hope they're, and I'm sure they are. All right. Well, any final comments, questions? Nikhil?
Hi, Anju. I'm very glad to be here. I really learned a lot because I don't always get firsthand information from the Indian context. And so it's very exciting to hear all these new programs that you are building within IIMC. My alma mater, IIT Bombay, is also encouraging entrepreneurship. They are forming similar alumni mentorship programs. And so I think you are doing everything on the right track. And I'll be very happy to see some of these results coming up in the next couple of years. So I'll keep track of what's going on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Now we've got to find a way to create some kind of chat room where just once a week or something, we just get together and chat. We're just having so much fun in this environment, I think, that maybe it's this event that created the opportunity for the chat, but we should maybe think about how to extend that. But Ajayji, let's think more about that too.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that, and I think the more we talk, the more we collaborate, the more we chat, I think the more we learn ourselves.
And the more fun we have. And it's all about having fun and learning all at the same time.
Absolutely.
Anju, I have something to share on that front. In the 29th batch of 94, we've created something of a virtual common room using a platform called Discord. Nice. And there is already like IIM alumni groups on Discord. And so the experience is that of like coming to a common room. You are not like specifically like, you're not calling someone with intent. You're just like, sauntering in there. If someone is there, you say hi, you have a quick chat, and that technology allows us. I'll definitely connect with like the alumni team and talk more about this. But that'll be a wonderful thing to kind of
that
run
would
into
be great, Venki. But I think that, I guess here's the point. How does it happen technically? Will the 29th batch help that happen for IIM Calcutta?
There already is an alumni launch initiative where across batches it exists today, right? Like, so it is just that I think a common room equivalent. So it's using a technology called Discord, which is very popular with the teens who they kind of keep playing games and keep chatting all the time. So if you ask someone who is like a teenager, they're likely to know the technology, and it takes some getting used to, but it's like a virtual common room. It's voice or up to 25 people video. It's free of cost, 100 people voice, but obviously 100 people will not work well. So you need to have possibly smaller rooms. We've had great chats casually running into each other, 5-6 people, 3-2 people kind of a thing, right? So
I know that
I'll reach out to you on that, Anju.
Please, that would be great, because I know that Latent View, Venkat, we've been talking about trying to get more platforms for alums and students in our community to get together but we'll talk more.
Sure.
Good. Nice to see you all. Back over to you. I keep taking over from you, Nikhil, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. So if there are no other comments from the esteemed panelists, then I would request Professor Aditi Botoria, faculty at Public Policy and Management and member of CEI, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. I'm at a loss of words. I've had a most wonderful last 1 hour listening to all the panelists and the questions. And on behalf of the IIM Calcutta Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, the IIM Calcutta Innovation Cell and Entrepreneurship Cell, the attendees here and the students, I would like to extend a hearty vote of thanks to this esteemed group of panelists. I would start with thanking Mr. Nilotpal Sahai, Mr. Venkatesh Krishnamurthy, of course, Shrikant Shastri, always such a pleasure listening to your views, and definitely Mr. Ajay Jain. Mr. Jain, your contribution, not just as a co-panelist, but also helping us organize this event is truly appreciated. Thank you so much. Most definitely our very own Institute Director, Professor Anju Seth, for guiding us at CEI and also for steering the conversation to bring out the best out of this conversation. Thank you so much. Finally, obviously, Professor Balram Avitur. I mean, one of the most nicest people to work with, really, and leading and coordinating the CEI activities. Shubhrangshu is working with us. And last but definitely not the least, the students who've been a very important part of this organization. Nikhil, thank you so much. Pramit, I am, who's organizing the IT. I can see Navya, Jaideep, thank you so much for all contributing towards this effort. I was just taking a word cloud of all the things that we were talking about, and the diversity is surely interesting. I mean, we spoke about markets, startups, e-commerce, e-governance, telecommunications, telemedicine. We were talking about different countries. We were talking about long-term, short-term, medium-term, permanent changes because of COVID-19, AI, ML, so all of that. And that basically surely tells us how much can be achieved in an hour and has set up standards for productive conversation. And we've all gone through unprecedented times with COVID-19, but I think the one thing that we take away with us is motivation, motivation through discourse, through communication, and connecting with like-minded individuals. And this was exactly that. I am sure that the audience today was absolutely inspired by your wise words. So on that note, thank you once again, and wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Aditi.
Aditi.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining
Bye.
us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.